My heart is warm with the friends I make, and better friends I'll not be knowing. Yet there isn't a train I wouldn't take, no matter where it's going. While the great poet's romantic relationship with train travel was undoubtedly heartfelt, she was definitely not traveling by rail as the 19th century neared its end. The dangers posed by increasingly fast trains, coupled with heavier and heavier cargo loads, moving across an aging rail system made derailment a common occurrence. In addition, the primitive communications and safety mechanism of the era often resulted in either head-on collisions or, conversely, telescoping, which occurred when a stationary or slow-moving train was hit from the rear by another train on the same tracks. When this happened, especially in winter, when the cars were heated by coal-burning stoves and illuminated by kerosene lamps, the wooden passenger cars were quickly engulfed in flames, resulting in a quick and unpleasant death for those surviving the initial impact. In retrospect, a simple fact was obvious. This revolutionary technology was progressing faster than society could regulate or control it. Utilizing various techniques, including music, sound effects, and text from actual newspaper accounts from the era, The Ghost of Hope purports to recreate several of these horrific incidents. While the dangers described in these factual events are now largely confined to the past, humanity perseveres, valiantly thundering ahead into the uncharted realms of digital technology, genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, and the attempt to spread our seed throughout the cosmos. Meanwhile, have we learned from the past, or are we doomed to repeat our mistakes on an ever grander scale?
said. Down the incline followed two more gold cars as all aboard appeared, oblivious to the fate lying in wait for them on the incline. He suddenly saw the light. He suddenly saw the light. He suddenly saw the light rushing toward him. Deep in the dark, deep in the darkness, 2 miles down the track, engineer back down, and suddenly saw the light of a coach descending the incline toward him, reversing his engine. He jumped for his life as the runaway car started down the grade at 40 miles an hour. The engine forced its way deep into the coach, killing without care, unleashing screaming steam, parboiling human flesh, and leaving those less injured to gaze upon the heartless horrors of the night.
I was returning with my 4-year-old son from a visit to my husband. We lay down to sleep and I suddenly perceived the train was running backward, faster and faster. About 10 minutes the crash came and I quickly realized that the engine of another train had crushed its way into the car. My first thought was of my little boy, but he had disappeared. Indescribable sensations accompanied the appearance of his death. I called Marshy, Marshy, and out of the darkness he answered, "Here I am, Mama." Our faces were covered with blood, and he said, "How are we going to get out of here?" "Never mind, Mama will take you out," I replied and cried for help. Having no assistance in getting out, I tore most of my clothing off, but the engineer and the other gentlemen were very kind. Immediately after escaping, the two sides of the car fell together, causing a second crash. When the relief train arrived, the conductor asked my son how he got out of there, and Marshall replied, "God helped me."
Life is a lonely train. Life is a lonely train. Life is a lonely train, racked by God.
The hopeful heart said go. The hopeful heart said go. The hopeful heart, the home of art. The hopeful heart said go. Go.
I did not mean no harm. No cause to be alarmed. I can't escape the fact of Buster's broken back. Buster was my friend.
Yes.
I knew him like my skin.
Yes.
I never thought I'd be
So
sad for such a show.
go.
We had a good time for a week before we crashed them trains, touring two big Texas towns along the open plain. 50,000 people came to scream and drink and dance and feel the force as chaos met uncertain circumstance. Anticipating fury, elegant in white, proudly looking down upon the fruit of my delight. Old 99 was painted green, 1001 was red, but after they collided, a bunch of folks was dead. Anticipating fury, the people crowded close as the fateful hour plotted its approach. The rumble of the engines, faintly heard at first, was building as suspense descended like a curse. The trains came roaring down at 50 miles an hour, mounting tension like a match, tempting blasting powder. Disemboweling themselves in a fight. The outcry of the crash was louder than the thunder, pealing at the storm clouds that filled the skies of summer. I saw black clouds of iron hail blocking out the light, stealing death and open flesh. It was a wreck, all right. gutless ghost of hope. It sat upon my shoulder, then became a boulder, until two trains exploded, leaving me alone and older. Once I hoped this humbug would lead me to the glory I would gain by turning smoke into tomorrow's story.
But the ghost of hope said no. The ghost of hope said no. The ghost of hope, the prince of no. The ghost of hope said no.
No. No. No. No. No. Tragedy seems to follow the winds of family. Once an elder brother died while pigeon hunting. Then the younger brother was shot with his own gun. Also the 3-year-old daughter of the Windsors came too close to a campfire and burst into flames. Children were spirited away from pleasures of a picnic day into eternity. The day was to include a strawberry picking expedition and a picnic dinner too. down the tracks, rushing like a banshee, gliding down the tracks. Rushing like a banshee, gliding down the tracks, the swiftly moving engine collided with a crack of thunder as the Buick crossed the railroad tracks, spreading human freight along the railway grade, leaving fresh strawberries scattered in its way. William Windsor suffered a fractured skull and hip, a broken kneecap and a lacerated lip. When found by Roland Butler, who handled him with care, his head was in the ground and his feet were in the air.
Sitting on a hillside, ominous and black, a massive tank of petrol bled beneath the tracks.
Seen as steaming smokestacks in a sea of fire, the engine nearly vanished, embraced by searing spires. The raging yellow river, branded like an iron, as a scream betrayed the torment of a child.
Along the railway bed, a vast amount of oil had waited for a train to harbor, bake, and
Engineer Pat Sexton and fireman Billy Young saw the engine bathed in incandescent tongue, flames that licked and laughed and danced about in song, causing every breath to scorch their livid lungs. Sexton drove until, roasting flesh and pain, forced evacuation, still his hands remained fastened to the throttle as his flesh sustained charcoal blood blisters macerating him with pain.
but language fails to tell the sorry state of those trapped inside the coach where flaming oil exposed their callow bodies to a merciless
of the rushing fire. Victims rolled around in the snow like tires, desperate to escape the philosophy of fire, making every moment mad, malevolent, and dire.
Standing out like shadows, circled by the snow, were two misshapen masses as black as Satan's soul, recognized only by fragments of their clothes, clinging to their limbless trunks like a scent around a rose.
Wife of Lewis Haynes, had only lived in wedlock 2 years till her remains were recognized by nothing but the gold ring he located near a shapeless relic, both beloved and ill-fated. Nearby lying like a mockery of man, another blackened corpse was the maiden Miss Moran, sitting in an alabaster drifted snowflake dance. Around her head and gently landed on her hand. Other victims of the flaming Holocaust, with gnarly nubs remaining from the limbs they lost, were randomly arranged like ashes in the frost, their silence speaking loudly of insanity and loss.
Conductor Townsend said, peering through a mask, revealing nothing but his eyeballs as he rasped.
Such a fire you never saw. It was an oil fire. An oil fire! Ain't nothing but an oil fire makes such a hellish inferno. And there I was, right in the middle of it, with that car echoing with the screams of women and the howls of men as that train rushed into that flaming abyss. I was in the coach when I heard a hellish crash. I fell out of my bunk and my left cheekbone was bashed. In a screaming flash, that crutch broke right in two like a pickaxe poking through that crying kid's balloon. coach disintegrated, tossing me in the air, coming down upon the rubble in my underwear. A coat came sailing over, and it landed on my back. I pulled it up around me as I sat down on the tracks. Today we tried to do a show. The place was mostly filled, but all of us ain't here, so shit ain't working well. The girl that used to train those lions over there, she was burnt to death. Now her husband, he don't care. Me, I'm just a clown, acting like a loon, then breaking down in tears in my dressing room, calling out the names of Eddie Allen Kern and Sonny Boy Deloach, who roasted like some burned up bacon in that coach. Oh, thank God for Emil Swem. He pulled me from the wreck, and I've been following him around all day saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. Then there was the funeral, the day after the show, for 56 performers, friends and circus joes, were buried in the graveyard known as Showman's Rest, built by Buffalo Bill and circled by no less than elephants of solid stone standing in the snow, looking at the sky above and guarding the ground below. The hole was 35 feet long and 24 feet wide, and as they laid the caskets in it, everybody cried. The entrance of the gladiators echoed in the space. Perplexed and wondered some about God's golden grace. He often did typewriting, detective work and some sales of real estate, while discreetly living under unassuming name. Pennsylvania train ran into a ford. Mrs. Robert Falwell and Wilson Parker Page perished instantly. Mr. Page was carried 100 feet. His arm was broken off, and his back was shattered. Mrs. Falwell's brains were scattered down the track for quite a horrid distance for each and all to see. Detective work and song, sales of real estate, while discreetly living under unassuming names. Was worthless and incurred only a few postcards given to him by girls. fall, face first in the mud.
Living as his wife.
She often did typewriting, detective work and some sales of real estate, while discreetly living under unassuming names. The woggle bog did not decrease its speed until it thrashed the air on auto, leaving random relics like leaves after the wind. She called herself Mrs. Orwell and Mrs. Burton Bay and Arabella Campbell and Mrs. Arthur Payne.